Right below curve is clarity, and that includes clarity and structure. So we have two sliders here, and I love them both. And I really like the way Capture One Pro implements these adjustments. And what I mean by that is it puts the adjustment, it centers it in the middle. So you can add clarity, or you could add structure, or you could decrease clarity and decrease structure. And I think that's very handy. And I'm going to show you two different ways that I use these. Now, structure tends to deal with the finer details in an image. And so it's very helpful for fine detail. Now, clarity, on the other hand, does affect sharpness, but it also affects contrast. So it does a couple things, and midtone contrast in particular. So let me show you how these work. We have 4 different types of clarity adjustments. So we have natural, punch, neutral, and classic. Now, classic and punch are the ones that are the sledgehammer, so to speak. They're the ones that if you use punch or if you use classic and you make an adjustment, you're really going to see it. I'm actually going to reset this, and let's go ahead. Before we use these sliders, let's use our auto button and go ahead and get our exposure, something that's a little bit more palatable to me. So I'm going to go up to auto. There we go. And now we've made an exposure adjustment, and I think that'll show off this clarity adjustment that I want to make a little bit more. It brought the contrast down. We'll let clarity handle that. All right, so here we are, and maybe not quite so much on the shadows. I like something like that. You want to see before and after on them? Let me hold down that option key. See, that was just a little too dull. Okay, and we'll zoom in, and I haven't talked much about that, but we haven't really needed to. All I'm going to do is hold down the Command key on a Mac and go to the plus, and I can just zoom in. Then I'll hold down the space bar and just sort of reposition. Now, we do have up here the loop, so we can use that, but Command plus and Command minus work really well for me. All right, so let's take a look at punch here on clarity, and let me just see if I can demonstrate what happens. See how it affects the contrast also. And in this case, I just don't think it's really that flattering. Now, structure is going to be a lot different. Watch, structure is just going to work on the detail. Ooh, isn't that nice? It really makes a difference. Let's do before and after. Hopefully you can see the difference. See how it just sort of gives everything just a nice crispness. So I really like structure for the fine detail adjustment. But maybe we just had something that was too strong in terms of method. Let's go to natural, which is far more subtle, and we can do a little clarity adjustment. You see, it's not nearly as crazy. And that's pretty nice. So now we have both clarity and structure. Before, after. We'll just kind of hop back a little bit here. I'm doing Command minus. Just kind of zoom back out. And we can do our overall before and after. Just hold down Option. There's where we were. And here's where we are now. Much better, wouldn't you say? So we have natural, which is, I think, the most subtle of the clarity methods. Neutral is used a lot in landscape, and it has a little bit more oomph, especially in terms of contrast, than natural. And then punch and classic, they're the two heavy hitters. I don't use punch and classic very much. I find myself using neutral, which is more the mid-level method, or natural, which is the most subtle of the methods more often. I really do like what happens here with natural. All right, so there's this shot right here, but let me show you a portrait also. What we're doing on this shot was increasing detail and increasing contrast a bit. Let's find a portrait. Let's go up here and find a Leah portrait that we haven't done anything on. Let's go right here. And let's just see what happens on auto. I like that. I think I'll recover just a little bit more highlight there. And then let's zoom in. So we'll do Command plus on this. And I'll hold down the space bar. Okay, so now here we have a good look. And You can see that there is a fair amount of detail in her face here. Generally not what we want for portraits, but of course that depends on the portrait. And if you remember what we did in the color tab, definitely uniformity would help with this when we're adjusting the color. But we also can use our friend clarity here. So I'm going to go to natural, and now I'm going to go the other way with clarity. I'm going to take it all the way down. I'm going to bring up structure just a little bit, like that. And let me show you the before and after on that. So there's where we were, and there's where we are right now. And that's why I like clarity in this application. I like the way they've done it because it really gives me all sorts of options. I have options for working on portraits, a very easy way just to sort of soften the skin a bit. But look at her eyes are still very nice. And then you can recover a little bit of that detail with structure, but the skin still stays nice. In fact, let's zoom in just a bit more and I'll show you that the eyes still should be quite good. Is that nice? Okay, let me hold down the Option key again. There's where we were. And you can actually see pores and stuff. I mean, I hope you can. I can see them here on my computer. And then let's do an overall. Hold down the Option key. There's where we were. And here's where we are now. So let's back out, do Command minus. So that is a look at clarity and structure. Two ways to use them. Remember, structure is the finer detail and it doesn't affect contrast. And clarity does mid-tone contrast and more or less depending on what method you use, but it also affects the coarser detail too. And I think clarity can be used both to increase punch and sharpness and clarity, but it can also be used in this case to soften things a bit. And they are just a terrific tandem of tools. I love them.